Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator based in the United Kingdom, and today I'm doing a bit of a technique card for you, and this is it's how to make your own kind of gloss effect tile, but also how to just heat emboss just a sentiment, but in any of our Stampin' Up! Colours. So a bit of fun. Obviously a Mother's Day card. I've used the sentiment for the Mother's Day from Daffodil Daydream. Happy Mother's Day. I do prefer Mothering Sunday, but we don't seem to have that sentiment, so you know, that's a sandbox idea. But I have used the beautiful Blessings of Home stamp set, and I'm delighted that this is carrying through because it has, you know me, I'm a sucker for a stamp set with a sentiment. We have got some fabulous sentiment stamp sets coming up, but this one is really lovely. Beautiful Day for Love, Have a Perfect Birthday. So those two are ones I use. Thank You for Inspiring Me. I often use the thank you. I use the for inspiring me as well for some special friends. These are great stamp sets. What you're going to need some clear embossing powder. You're going to need your Versamark ink as well. I've got here, and you'll need either some scrap paper or and sort of a heat resistant mat to do a bit of embossing, and I've also got my silicone mat that I'm going to use as well. So a few bits and pieces that you're going to need. Oh, and the other thing is to say that the textile embossing folder which I've used for this is retiring, so if you love this textured kind of background, hopefully you can see it there, then I would really recommend that you get this while it's still available. So that's the first bit I'm actually going to do, which is that front layer. And this is 13.5 by 9.5, so it's kind of a half an inch or a centimetre smaller than the card front itself. And I'm just going to pop that through. It is a 3D folder, so you need to remember, or you'll need a heat gun as well, obviously. So you just need to remember the correct sandwich for that, because what you don't want to do is either break the break your machine or break your folder. So always make sure you put it through with the crease first, the fold first. So there's my embossed layer, so I'm just going to pop that to one side. What else am I going to do? Right, let's get going. So we need to do some stamping first. So I want a piece of basic white cardstock to go onto that. I've now got that. I'm covered in ink. Right, okay, that's going to be good fun. So I've done this layer here. I'm going to cut my layers while we're here. So card, 29 by 10.5, which I've scored at 14.5, so a standard card. You then cut your layers just half a centimetre smaller. So I've got some Night of Navy here that I'm going to pop on there. Now obviously we don't need the whole, all of that to be visible, so I'm just going to gut that at about 1.5 centimetres all the way around. So I'm lining that up at 1.5 centimetres, and then I'm just cutting between, so from 1.5 centimetres down to 1.5 centimetres from the bottom. You can see there. And that gives you a little bit of room, it keeps it nice size on the frame, and it gives you a layer that you can use on another project. So that's my frame. As I said, I've then got my layer to go onto that. So that's my Tasteful Textile. I've got a nice ink mark on that, so I'm actually going to hopefully cover that up. I reckon that's just about going to be covered up by my card layer. Now I forgot to make a note of the dimensions for this, so yeah, around about 9.5, do we think? Yeah, let's have a look. Did I cut one to the right size? Oh, 9.5. Yes, by 12. Okay, I reckon that's actually a bit 9.5 by 11.5. So all I'm doing is having a quick look. I could grab my ruler, but I can't actually read it. So this is actually smaller than that. So it's actually 11.5 long. Yeah. And I reckon it's probably about 8.5. But let's just do 0.5 centimetres first. Yeah. So, okay. Right, so Night of Navy is 11.5 by 8.5. I then want some Misty Moonlight. So that's going to be 0.5 centimetre, so that's 8 by 11. So that's going to give us a layer there. So it's just nice to have that kind of contrast. Misty Moonlight, retiring again. Make sure you get it while you can. And then we've got our basic white layer, which is 7.5 by 10.5. Okay. Now, what you want to do, what do you want to do next? What I'd like you to do next, if you're crafting along with me, is stamp your image. So there's 2 bits to the stamping that we want to do. I want to do an inside layer for my card, which I'm going to do here, and I'm also going to stamp my focal image as well. I'm going to stamp that one first. It's got a chance to dry. Big stamp, so ink pad to stamp. It also stops you with a big ink pad getting sort of too much surplus ink as well. And then I'm just going to hover over and stamp down. There we go. Just pop that to one side. Then for my other image, I'm going to stamp that, and this is the one that I would also use on the envelope to go with it. I am going to ink that up, but I'm just going to grab a bit of scrap paper, stamp off first, and then make a mess of my cardstock. There we go. Pop that to one side as well. Certain inks I just seem to manage to get everywhere. This is obviously one of them. Now, this is going to be the layer for the inside of my card, so I can pop that in straight away. Just with a bit of Tombow. And what I can also do is add my layers to the front, because what I'm going to do is with these, I'm going to add my adhesive to the outer edge of my textile panel, and I do tend to use Tombow with embossed panels. It kind of gets into the embossed creases and just seems to give a really good finish and adhere really well. Actually, yep, that's fine. I was just thinking I'd done an extra, I hadn't done my extra layer, but of course my card base is Misty Moonlight, hence I've got my nice layer. So that can go to one side, and then we can do the next stage. So the next stage is very simple. We're going to grab a block and we're going to grab one of our blender pens, this is a way of colouring your image with whatever colour ink you happen to have. And you can be quite subtle with this, or you can be quite bold. And I'm just dipping my blender pen into where I've smooshed my ink pad, and then just treating that as if it's a blender pen and just sort of swirling around. I'm generally working from the centre out, because that way you'll get a natural kind of gradation of colour. So I kind of go over where that where the detail is on the stamped image. So these bits here, and then work my way out, so you can see it sort of naturally gets lighter, like so. And the last one here. And again, you can do as much or as little colouring as you like. You know, you could just keep it very simple outlines. You could just pick up the colour. You'll see as I'm going over this, the colour picks up from the stamped image as well. I just wanted to just add a little more colour than just the ink from the stamped image. In places, anyway. As I say, you can really sort of, you know, spend quite a bit of time, and obviously you could colour this if you wanted to in actual, I'm saying actual colours, but in a variety of colours. if you wanted to. So there we go, there's our image. I'm just going to add a little more colour. This top flower. And just those others. So I'm literally just doing the flowers on here rather than the foliage as well. I'm just sort of double checking that I've kind of added a bit of colour to all the flowers and not the foliage. A little bit more, and I think that's probably about done. Okay, so now we're going to get on to our kind of embossed effect. This is a technique that's been around many years. All you're going to do is take your ink pad and you're going to put your Versamark all over the front of that card. And you're going to repeat this several times. So if you don't get it there, it doesn't matter. So then pop it onto, I've just got a piece of baking sheet here, a scrap card. Just add that and just tip it. And these are one of these occasions when you're embossing and you're not going to use any powder or anything. Don't tap it off too much because you want the powder to stay on in this occasion. Pop that to one side, and I'm just using a mat here that I've got, and I'm just going to use my heat gun from the top and just melt all of the front of that. So a bit of noise, here we go. And as you can see, I'm just holding it in place at the moment with my take your pick spatula end. And I'm just holding it until it starts to melt. And at this stage, I'm actually not worried about it being really smooth, because you get the smoothness by layers of Versamark. Now, if you've got some thick, the ultra thick, that would obviously do this more quickly. But this is, you know, like triple embossing it in effect. Again, I say it's been around a while. And you can cut it into pieces first and do it as an actual tile. Obviously that takes longer and is a bit more fiddly. So once you've done one layer, just come in with your Versamark and again cover it all over with that ink. Here's our embossing powder. Scoop that up straight away, which is why I didn't bother putting it in. And then you can just come in with a bit of extra where you need to. Okay. And again, just pop that down. I generally find it's good to hold it in place, put it somewhere it doesn't matter, and just heat it up again. And then it's depending on the effect that you want, if you wanted to do the cracked glass technique, which is where you then, once you've embossed it, you kind of add cracks to it and then ink over to make it look as if it's kind of like a cracked tile, then you probably want to do at least 3 layers of it. But for this one, just to get that shine, you'll find that sort of 2 layers is probably sufficient. But what you do need to do is make sure it's heated up evenly all over to get it as smooth as possible. Actually, I'm going to do another layer, so I'll switch off and do another layer. And then so I've done my 3rd layer now, literally just so it's still a little bit warm, so hopefully you can see you've got a lovely shine on that. So the 3rd layer generally gives a better finish. So now what I want to do is create my sentiment. So I've got a piece of card that's 2.5 by 4.5 centimetres. You want your Versamark and you want your colour. And then with your sentiment, you just want to make sure that you haven't that you've given it a really good clean, and it's really nice and super clean. I do tend to keep one really nice Versamark, and another one that I don't worry about so much. Ink it up in the Versamark, then just once in our colour, and then stamp straight down onto our sentiment. Apart from the fact that's picked up a hair, never mind. And then come in and just pop our embossing powder over that. And what will happen is that our embossing powder will just stick to where our sentiment is, because we've actually in effect made our Misty Moonlight a Versamark ink. So popping my ink pads away, like so, and I can come in and just heat emboss. It's clear anyway, so if you do get any specks, because I forgot to use my embossing buddy, but being clear, I'm not going to worry about it. It's a small piece, so generally just hold that in place, and you'll see in a moment that we've got a lovely embossed sentiment. It just adds a little bit of shine, especially when we're doing a piece of card. Hopefully you can see that there. A little bit of shine. Okay, so now what we want to do is layer that up, and also layer up our embossed panel. So quite simply, you're going to need some strong glue for this. So I'm using my Seal Plus. Because you've heat embossed it and it's got quite a bit on there, you want to make sure that it's going to stick down really well. So I'm just using my Seal Plus, and I have not stuck that very centrally at all. Never mind. Okay. And again, by double layering this, it does give it a bit more oomph, and helps to keep it nice and straight. It doesn't keep it straight at all. I'm useless at straight today, but it does keep it flat. Then what you're going to do is just layer up our sentiment as well, and we just want a small piece of Misty Moonlight for that, or a bit of Night of Navy. And because I'm just going to make it slightly bigger, I'm just going to pop up to 2.8 by 4.8. Just add that little bit of contrast there. So pop my layer on, and all that remains now is to add that to my card front. Because we've already got some texture on there, I just want to raise with a bit of dimension and make sure we support it well. So although I'm usually very frugal with my dimensionals, you know, they're good quality, simply because they're good quality and they stick so well that you don't need to cover the back. But on this, I usually do one in the middle. It's a slightly larger layer, so I'm just going to make sure that that's got plenty of dimension on it and plenty of support. And this is where I'm going to strategically place this, hopefully to cover up that ink spot that I had. And there we go. I'm just going to centralise that in that top section, because that then leaves me some space at the bottom where I'm going to add my dimensional here. And I'm going to add some seal to the top kind of corner. So that is then going to go with a slightly narrower border on the bottom there. And there we have our Mother's Day tile effect card, complete with dimensional back, and some coloured heat embossing. Thanks for watching. Come back and see me again soon. And if you'd like to purchase any of the items you've seen, do pop along to my shop, heidismith.stampinup.net, or follow the links in the description below this video if you're on YouTube, or pop to my blog at flutterbyheidi.co.uk and you'll find links there as well. Bye!